Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Steve with Real Progressives. Yeah, I had to take a few days off. I've been pretty sick under the weather here. Also dealing with recovering from bereavement. But the more and more I sit back and read and watch and understand our role in this revolution as it goes forward, the more I understand that we have to really make sure that we look at a long game. I have struggled mightily to get people to understand that the next 5 minutes is not forever. The next month is not forever. However, if we don't take care of business over the next month and a half, we will have consequences that we can't even begin to measure. So I've been asked countless times. In fact, I got an inbox today telling me that there was somebody that was going to be no longer following Real Progressives because they felt like we were in the tank for Donald Trump. And I thought to myself, I was like, wow, you don't listen. You don't pay attention at all. There's nothing good about Donald Trump, with the lone exception that I can count on even a vote blue sycophant to stand against Donald Trump for 4 years. That's the only good thing I can count on with Donald Trump. Nothing else. But I can't even count on that from Hillary. And that's a sad truth. So I kept thinking to myself, I can't seem to make many burners understand how important it is that we get past our moment of feelings for Bernie and understand that Bernie's not running right now and that Jill Stein is. It just seems to be hitting a brick wall. Now, there's some people out there that are getting it, that truly are getting it. But there's a vast majority that I run into that are still Sanders, that are not willing to budge. And I don't quite understand it, but it is the dynamic we're dealing with. The other problem we have is I've never ever in my entire life been polled where I've been given a choice of Hillary, Trump, Jill Stein, or Gary Johnson. I've never been asked one single time, but I am always asked every single day whether I will support Hillary Clinton versus the evil Nazi Donald Trump. Literally, the polls are coming in so biased, so completely and utterly unscientific, meant to lead the poller or pollee to a conclusion that the polling place is desperately trying to get us to. So how would Jill Stein get into the debates? There needs to be a system that allows for third parties to accurately measure where they fit into this debate stage if this is going to be the way America conducts its elections going forward. You know, I am struggling with how I can do more. We had somebody come in here on the other side. So we have the one person saying we're abandoning ship because you guys look like you're supporting Trump. Wrong, we're not. And the other side is saying, well, you don't say enough about Jill Stein. And I'm saying, what the hell are you talking about? I don't know what more I could do. I've sat there, if you put all my videos together, I've spent hours talking about Jill Stein. And I've spent hours talking to former burners and burners to try and get them to understand what is at stake to support the next progressive standing. So I've come to the conclusion that I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want to do and stick with my team. And my team trusts me and I trust them. And we know we're fighting for a revolution. And we know exactly what we think we're trying to do. Will we be right? Only time will tell. But I know for a fact that my heart and my conscience is clear because I know that I'm standing by my principles. I'm a firm believer that if you vote for something or someone, regardless of the reasons why, that you own that vote and you own the outcomes of that vote. So that is why I feel very comfortable voting for Jill Stein. Now, do I believe that Jill Stein is going to miraculously hit that magic plateau and get all the votes that she needs to topple the oligarchy and topple the duopoly and win this election in 2016? Probably not. It's not because we don't want her to. It's not because I don't want her to. But there is an incredible emotional pull that many people have. And where we're going to go with this discussion today is about the idea that going all the way back to the beginning of the Bernie campaign, every single one of the former Berners that are telling us Jill can't win, Jill is not a serious candidate, Jill is a fraud, Jill is a this, Jill is a that, are the same exact cases that the Hillbots said to us and the mainstream media said to us when we were fighting tooth and nail for Bernie. Now, why in the world would someone who's been through that gaslighting treatment already once, why would they suddenly employ that same gaslighting treatment again? They already know how destructive it is. They already know how utterly devoid of value it is. So why would they gaslight people fighting for the next progressive up? Because that's what you're doing when you say that Jill is unelectable, Jill's a fraud, or whatever else you say. You're gaslighting. Because the fact is that enough people vote for Jill, the Electoral College will have a really tough deal on its hands, won't it? The Electoral College will have to consider what it is that the American people have voted for. And you want to talk about having a real revolution, you've sometimes got to sound the wake-up call with a lot more than a pout and a stomp. Sometimes you're going to have to do some things, some coordinated things, to make sure that they understand, they being the establishment, they being those who robbed us of the primary, and they being the ones that are now trying to guilt us into making up for their mistake in supporting Hillary. It's time for us to show them, win, lose, or draw, that we progressives, we real progressives, are truly not only not for sale, but we're not given to fear porn either. We are fighting for something. Now, I have a lot of friends that tell me that the world is getting uglier by the minute. That regular voting, that living life as we know it today is going to change dramatically in the future. Now, I don't want to be a doomsday person. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy that starts telling you post-apocalyptic stories to get your ass out the door to help out with this. So I'm not going to do that yet. But I am going to tell you this. Things are pretty gloomy for a lot of us, myself included. And I make pretty damn good money in my existing job. But my debts are slaughtering me. And they're slaughtering others who are not packing 2 master's degrees, who can't just up and go and get a job like I'm grateful enough to have been able to do over the years. But I'm still a government contractor. I'm still a contractor. I still work for 6-month contracts, year contracts, etc. I'm still an at-will employee, me, myself, with 2 master's degrees. Now think about the other folks out there who don't have that backing them. They don't have 12 years to wait for another third party to get enough funding and backing behind it to make a progressive change happen. And I'm dumbfounded that we can't get that through our thick heads so that people have a legitimate fighting chance, if not in 2016, in at least 2020. I don't understand this. If we don't set the stage today for our actions that we begin to take tomorrow, we're going to be stuck in reverse, not even neutral, folks. That should frighten you. And when I hear people say that they're still Sanders and stuff like that, I get it. I do. It's painful, but I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it. We are in a situation right here, right now, where if we don't take drastic measures, if we don't get committed quickly, we will indeed be stuck with the oligarchy's choice. Now, I was listening to the Young Turks earlier. I don't remember the girl's name. She's got blonde hair. I'm sure you know her. And she was covering a Donald Trump story about racism. And she was sitting there talking about how scary his whole life is, his behavior is, and she was very solemn. I mean, she had the whole voice going and everything. And then, after she finished completely and utterly making it out that if you voted for anyone that allowed Trump to win, wow, I don't know, kind of thing, right? And she goes, now let's talk about the Green Party. We want to get Green Party exposure. And I was like, it's kind of like you just negated the next words that come out of your mouth, whatever they might be. You've just sat there and set your audience up to be completely anti whatever you might add about the Green Party and Jill Stein. It's kind of like getting some publicity out there without actually doing anything. And that's a shame. Because she has a great voice. I watched, she did a very good job overall in terms of her delivery. But she was playing on the Trump fear porn yet again. And it's like, I don't know about you all, but I used to hang out with a lot of guys that would, get rowdy and say a lot of crazy stuff. And they were blowing off steam, they were acting a fool, etc. But then there was always that guy that really did shit. And you knew when you got to the party, if somebody was drinking and whatnot, you didn't want to be around when that guy got angry. You didn't want to look at his girlfriend for fear that he would think you were trying to do something. You didn't want to do anything. You wanted to steer clear of him, right? That's Hillary Clinton in this election to me. Donald Trump is that guy that's over there yanking his crank, wanking on about something nonsensical, and you just say, yada, yada, yada. Hillary, she scares the living shit out of me because she actually does understand how these things work. She actually does have connections in these countries. And if I trusted her judgment, this is not an experience thing. Girlfriend's experienced. This is a judgment thing. I know for a fact, and I've said this before and I'm going to say it again, I know for a fact that Vote Blues will go absolutely apeshit against Donald Trump. Look at him now. But I know for a fact, she takes us to war, all of a sudden it's all about nuance, isn't it? It's all about, sometimes you got to go to war. And I can't risk that. I trust that for 4 years, that all those Vote Blues would go absolutely ape shit. Meme making crazy. But I know for a fact they'll go back to sleep and we will literally be neutered in this revolution because they will spend all their time. Think about how much time and effort you will need to spend defending every single one of the scandals, defending wars, defending neoliberal policies because they're not as bad as the other side. I mean, it is so dispiriting to see people come to you and say things. And they just say things like, do you realize that I wake up in the morning at like 5 a.m. reading the news, not just the freaking mainstream news, but alternative media, etc. And I go to bed midnight-ish, having done the same exact thing. I am plugged in. I'm talking to people at the Dakota Pipeline. I'm talking to people in Charlotte. I'm talking to people on the ground in all these different places. I'm in this, man. I'm plugged in. Don't tell me something like I don't know what the outcomes could be. I'm not stupid. I get it. The only thing that could put our feet to sleep is a zombie movement. A zombie movement led by a triangulating president who literally makes us out to be the crazy step-uncle at Thanksgiving that comes in and tells the crazy stories, about climate change and stuff like that, right? So I have gotten to the point now where when I read the comments coming back from a lot of people, and I see the people that are standing strong, I say to myself, hell yes, thank God there are some people awake. And I wonder what November 9th is going to look like. I'm not worried about as much November 8th. I'm more worried about what it's going to look like after the election. Who's going to stay tuned in to fighting? The war didn't end. Hell, it's just beginning. So who is going to stay awake if Jill doesn't get in? And we know Bernie's not being brought back. The Democrats would rather lose with one of their establishment types than ever give in to a guy that represents the 99%. You know this. This is the sad truth. The Democratic Party, as you once knew it, is DOA. It's done. It's histoire. So what are you going to do on November 9th? Are you going to go back to watching hockey, watching the NFL, thinking about your fantasy football league? Or are you going to be fighting for a revolution? Are you going to be out there hitting the streets when we need people to go out to protest things? Are you going to be able to pick up the phone and call and make sure that we register our displeasure when people do things that are insane? Are you going to stay committed, or are you checking out? We need people, no matter what happens in November, to stay committed to this thing. And it is extremely dispiriting when you see people co-opt and brand the word revolution, or when you see them co-opt and brand resistance, or when you see them co-opt and brand a movement. The fact is, this is no joke for some of us. For some of us, we have very, very real outcomes that we're worried about. I hope and pray that enough of you are awake, that you stay woke as fuck, that you stay woke, that you don't go back to sleep, that you keep your head in the game and take this last month plus into November fighting for Jill, fighting for the next progressive up, donating to her. This is not a matter of you being in love with Jill. This is a matter of fighting for the next progressive, fighting for the freaking 99%. That is not plugged into the matrix. That is not having to answer to the establishment. That is actually fighting and telling them things they don't want to hear. Could Jill and Baraka have run a better campaign? Oh my Lord, could they ever? Yes, they absolutely could. Do they have a great infrastructure? They have the shittiest infrastructure, no joke. They do. But that's what happens when you're not well funded. That's what happens when you don't have corporations pouring money into your shop. It's requirement that you have a grassroots movement push you there. We got a month and a half, folks. A month and a half. Can you stay woke for a month and a half, at least? And then get a second win and help us keep going? This stuff can burn you out. No joke. It can burn families out. It can burn your loved ones out. My God. Let me just say, I am so grateful that my significant other supports me in this. Because if not, there'd be no this. I'd walk away from it because my family comes first. I'd have no choice. But she does. She knows my heart's in this. And she respects me enough to let me do it. And I've had to try to respect her and back off some every once in a while just to make sure I tend to my family, because that's important too, right? These activists that are out there fighting for this stuff, they're giving up a lot more than money. They're really putting it on the line here. I want you guys to know that we need your help too. We really, really, really need your help. This thing is far from over. Jill may not get the election wrapped up. She may not win. She probably won't win. Let's be fair. I mean, what's she polling at? You know, based on the crappy polls that don't even ask. But the reality is, she is the next progressive up. And if we're already looking at Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton going bad Trump, bad Hillary, and that's your debate. Our issues are gone. Nobody's even talking about them. You know, nobody's even talking about them. And then now you've got these shootings that have taken place recently. And you got Trump pumping up the stop and frisk. And you got Hillary, who thought the crime bill that enabled all this thing was a really, really smart bill. She's bringing them to heel, isn't she? How can we let either of these two fools get in? It doesn't matter at this point. Now what we've got to do is we've got to fight for the next progressive standing. And we got to stay woke. We got to stay woke. Anyway, this is Steve with Real Progressives, hoping you guys stay woke as fuck. Have a great day.